Have you ever been left behind in a strange place, with no money, no one to call, and no one waiting for you? Well, I lived through that moment, and what hurt the most was, I wasn't abandoned by strangers. I was made into a joke by my own family. They didn't lose me. They left on purpose, and turned it into some cruel prank. When I realized that, I was standing in the middle of a dusty gas station on the border of Utah, the sun scorching my back, and my phone battery at 2%. That's when it hit me, they weren't testing me. They wanted me to fail. And for a while, I thought I wouldn't survive. But then, everything changed. The trip was originally planned as a family getaway, like the ones we used to take when we were kids. My wife, my younger brother, and our roommate all suggested we go on a road trip to relive the old days, driving across America. They said I needed to clear my head and forget about work, since I had just been laid off after company-wide downsizing. At the time, I believed them, because I've always been someone who tries to trust. We left from Texas, passed through New Mexico, then reached Utah. It was a hot Sunday morning when we stopped at a rest area near Price, Utah. They said they needed to use the restroom, buy some drinks, and fill up the tank. I went into the convenience store to grab some snacks. When I came back out, the car was gone. At first, I thought it was a joke, like they'd done before. I stood there, awkwardly smiling, waited 5 minutes, then 10, then 30. No one came back. I pulled out my phone and tried calling. No one answered. Then a message came in from my wife. "Let's see how you survive without us. Good luck." I froze. It felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over me. Then a second message came in, this time from my brother. "Ha! Chill. It's just a little challenge. Let's see who the real man is." I opened my banking app. The main account was completely empty. My wife had offered to help manage our finances while I was unemployed. I never imagined she'd drain everything. I called again. Nothing. Within 10 minutes, they had all blocked my number. A stranger walked up, noticed my confusion. He asked, "Need some help?" I gave a half smile. I just got left behind by my own family." The man shook his head, like he'd seen this kind of thing too many times before. Then he walked away without saying another word. At that moment, the wind started to pick up. I sat down on the curb, leaning against the gas station wall. Inside me was a storm. Hurt, shock, humiliation, and anger mixed together like mud after a heavy rain. How could a man, nearly 30, once with a stable job, once the breadwinner of his family, end up like this? I didn't know. All I knew was this: I had no choice but to survive. I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to hitch a ride. No one stopped. As night fell, I found myself curled up next to a dumpster behind the convenience store, clutching 3 granola bars and a bottle of water. That was all I had. Before I passed out from exhaustion, I told myself, "If this is how they want to test me, then I won't let them win." I woke up in the middle of the night from the cold. Not the freezing kind, just the kind that came from emptiness. Cold from the concrete ground, from the silent darkness around me, and the coldest part, from inside. I sat up and looked around. No one. Just a few trucks parked far off, the faint hum of the gas station's AC unit, and the dim glow of the Open 24H sign casting my shadow long across the cement. I turned on my phone, hoping for some last bit of connection. Battery at 1%. Still no messages. I hesitated a moment, then powered it off, trying to save that last bit for tomorrow. I stood up, brushed off the dust, and walked along the empty road. Cars zoomed past. No one stopped. I held out my hand a few times, but no one even glanced. I wandered for a while, then made my way back to the gas station. The lights were still on. I pushed the door open. The young woman at the counter looked at me cautiously. "Can I help you?" I nodded politely. "Just need to use the restroom for a minute." She hesitated, then nodded. Inside it was clean, with a strong smell of disinfectant, but not unpleasant. I looked in the mirror, My face was pale, eyes sunken, hair messy, shirt wrinkled. I looked like a homeless guy. I washed my face, took a deep breath, and stepped back outside. I sat down on a stone bench along the side of the store. An older man was sitting there smoking. Long beard, weathered skin, wearing a faded denim jacket. He glanced at me, then held out a half-eaten sandwich. Want it? I hesitated, but I was starving. I nodded. Thanks. He sniffed, speaking without looking at me. Let me guess, you got dumped from a ride? I looked at him, a bit surprised. He gave a faint smirk and exhaled smoke. Old as dirt, he said. I've seen folks like you before, couples fighting, friends playing dirty tricks, or sometimes the whole damn family just wants to ditch someone and run. I swallowed the sandwich. It was dry, but it helped ease the hunger. I said quietly, They didn't fight with me. They just left. Like I was extra luggage. He shrugged. That's when you learn, no one's coming to save you. Stop hoping. Stop waiting for someone to turn around. No one's coming back. I stayed silent. I didn't know whether to feel sad or angry. But his words hit me hard, because they were true. I used to trust others more than I trusted myself. My wife, the one I thought would always have my back, was probably laughing right now, sharing their joke over drinks. My brother, the kid who used to eat my cooking, who I used to help with homework, was in on it too. And that so-called best friend, the guy who crashed on my couch for months when he had nowhere else to go, he definitely knew the plan from the start. I clenched my fists. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I couldn't accept falling apart like this. The old man stood up, stubbed out his cigarette. This station doesn't let anyone sleep around here at night. You better find a hidden spot somewhere. I nodded. Before leaving, he turned back and looked at me. Hey, kid. One thing I've learned after 60 years of drifting. Surviving is easy. But living without turning bitter, that's the real challenge. I didn't fully understand what he meant then. But I remember those words clearly, and I'll never forget the look in his eyes, deep understanding and emptiness. I found a spot behind the station, a rusted shelter where they kept the trash bins. It was late. The wind had picked up. I curled up tight, knees to my chest, clutching the last 3 granola bars. My hands still had a few crumbs from the sandwich the old man gave me. I looked up at the sky. There wasn't a single star. Then I closed my eyes and told myself, tomorrow, I'll get up and walk. Even if I have no money, no one beside me, I'll walk. I won't die here. I won't let them think they were right to leave you behind. That was the first promise. To myself. I woke up with sunlight hitting my eyes, not from a window, but from a gap between the rusted roof and the cold concrete wall. I lay still for a few minutes, my back aching like I'd been beaten, neck stiff. I had only gotten a few hours of sleep, constantly woken by hunger and the cutting wind. The water bottle was empty. The last granola bar was eaten around 3 a.m. Now I had nothing left. No food. No one. I stepped out from the hidden spot behind the gas station, my head spinning from hunger and lack of sleep. The night shift girl had been replaced by a middle-aged man. He looked at me cautiously as I walked in. I knew what I looked like: wrinkled clothes, messy hair, scruffy beard, and the vacant stare of someone completely lost. I didn't ask for money. I didn't ask for help. I just asked, "Is there anyone around here who needs cleaning or anything done? I'll work, just for some food or water." He shook his head immediately. "We don't hire strangers." I nodded, trying to stay calm, then walked out. I started walking along the quiet road, holding up a piece of cardboard I'd found in a trash bin. With a marker I'd written, "Work for food, we'll clean, lift, fix." Over an hour passed. Dozens of cars drove by, none stopped. My legs ached. My hands were shaking from hunger. But I refused to sit down. Not yet. Just as I was about to collapse, an old pickup truck pulled over. A man, Mexican, maybe in his 40s, leaned out the window. "Hey! You know how to do yard work?" I nodded. "Yeah, I can mow lawns, pull weeds, trim bushes." He nodded. "Hop in. I've got a backyard that needs cleaning. My wife's been nagging me, but I've been lazy." I climbed in, thanking him over and over. The smell of sweat mixed with hot plastic made me a bit nauseous, but I pushed it down. I couldn't afford to lose this first chance since being left behind. We reached an old neighborhood, about 20 minutes from the gas station. His house was small but tidy. The backyard, though, was a mess, grass up to my knees, trash scattered, dead leaves layered thick. I didn't ask about money. I just bowed my head and got to work. I worked for over 3 hours, until blisters formed on my hands. But I didn't stop. When I finished, soaked in sweat, the man came out holding a paper bag and a cold bottle of water. "My wife made sandwiches. Eat. And here, a few bucks, should be enough for another meal." I took them, hands trembling. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." He gave a small smile. "I used to be an undocumented immigrant. I know what it's like to be hungry and looked down on." I ate right there on his front steps. Every bite of that sandwich felt like it brought me back to life. It wasn't the best meal I'd ever had, but it was the one that reminded me I was still human. After I finished, I stood up, bowed to him. "I'm going to keep going. I need to find my way back to the city." "Where to?" "I don't know. But I need to keep moving." He thought for a moment, then said, "I know a small auto shop. 2 towns over. They sometimes hire people to clean the garage, wipe down tools. Not big money, but they got a place to sleep." My heart pounded. "Can you give me directions?" He looked at me for a moment, then sighed. "I'll drive you. But the rest, you walk on your own." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. The whole way there, I stared out the window, low rolling hills, dusty roads, memories flashing in and out like pieces of a broken reel. Nothing was certain anymore. But at least, I was doing something. I wasn't lying in the dark waiting. I wasn't hoping anyone would come back. I was walking on my own. When the truck stopped in front of a worn-out garage with a faded metal sign that read, "Valdez Auto and Tire," I stepped out and took a deep breath. I didn't know what they'd say. I just knew I'd stand tall and ask. Valdez Auto and Tire wasn't like any shop I'd seen before. It was old, with rust streaks on the tin roof and long oil stains across the concrete in front of the roll-up door. Inside I heard metal clanking, the hiss of air tools, and the thick mix of rubber, grease, and sweat. I walked up to the open door, gripping the strap of my empty backpack. The man who gave me a ride had already driven off. Now it was just me. And a half-open steel door. I knocked lightly on the frame. A middle-aged man, maybe in his 50s, stepped out from behind a lifted pickup. He wore an oil-stained t-shirt and a baseball cap, and looked at me like someone sizing up a used part. "What do you need?" I swallowed hard. I'm looking for work. Any kind. Someone said you might need help around here." He frowned. "Who told you?" "I was sent by someone named Jose. He said you might give me a chance. I'm not asking for anything, just a place to work, some food, maybe somewhere to sleep." I didn't get to finish before he raised a hand to stop me. He stared at me for a moment, then asked shortly, "You know anything about cars? I used to change the oil on my own car. I know how to clean up, organize tools, tidy a garage." He nodded slightly. "Follow me." I followed him around the back. Behind the shop was a small structure made of patched metal sheets, with 2 bunk beds, an old dining table, and a ceiling fan that spun slowly. "This is where the helpers sleep. There were 3 of them, one went back to his hometown. If you want, you can take the top bunk. I won't pay you the first month, we'll see if you can actually do anything." I nodded so fast I barely had time to think. "Yes. Thank you. I won't let you down," he added, his voice firm. "I'm Miguel. This isn't a charity. If you're lazy or act like a punk, you're out. Understand? Understood. Miguel nodded. Go wash up. I'll show you what to do. That afternoon, I worked nonstop. Wiped down tools, collected oil-soaked rags, scraped rubber chunks off the floor, cleaned every corner. Sweat dripped onto the garage floor, blisters formed on my hands, but I didn't complain once. For the first time in days, I was doing something that mattered. No one laughed. No one abandoned me. Every task was met with quiet acknowledgement, even if just a nod from Miguel. That evening, I was given a meal of rice, stewed chicken, beans, and cornbread. A mechanic named Luis slid his portion toward me. Eat more. You look like a damn skeleton. I smiled, a little embarrassed. But deep down, I felt warm. No one here asked where I came from or why I ended up in this dusty little town. They didn't judge me. They just let me exist, with dignity. My first night sleeping in the shop, I could still hear the distant hum of the air compressor. I lay on the hard bunk, the smell of oil in my nose, but I didn't mind. I felt safe. A simple feeling I hadn't had in weeks. Before sleeping, I pulled out my phone. A few % battery left. Still no messages. No missed calls. I no longer hoped they would come back. But I knew, if one day I could walk out of here with my head held high, I'd never need anyone to rescue me again. The next day, Miguel took me to buy a cheap set of work clothes. He said simply, "Consider it a loan. We'll deduct it once you've earned enough." I put them on, and it felt like I was shedding my old skin. No longer someone abandoned on the roadside. I was someone starting over. I began each day with the deafening noise of the garage, air compressors, tires screeching on the floor, shouts in both English and Spanish. No one called me by name. They just called me Kid. Even though I was over 30, I was the newest, lowest on the totem pole. But I didn't complain. I learned every little thing: how to take off a tire faster, how to wipe away grease without wasting water, how to talk to customers without annoying them. Miguel never gave compliments. But if he didn't yell, it meant I was doing fine. After 2 weeks, on a Friday evening, he called me into the small office in the corner of the shop. There was a white envelope on the desk, thicker than I expected. He pushed it toward me without saying a word. I opened it. Inside was $220. I looked at Miguel, surprised. "I thought I wasn't getting paid this week?" "Wasn't the plan. But you didn't piss anyone off, didn't break anything, and didn't quit. Not many people manage that." He leaned back in his chair, arms folded. "I don't like whiners. But I don't block people who are trying." I bowed my head. "Thank you? Really?" Miguel waved me off. "Get out. Other people want their break too." I left the office with the envelope in my pocket, heart pounding like I'd won the lottery. Not because of the money, but because I finally felt recognized. After all the days being treated like garbage, I could now say with pride, "I earned this. With my own hands." That night, I went to a small grocery store in town. I bought a razor, toothpaste, a new pair of socks, and a pack of mint gum. No special reason, I just wanted to feel normal. On the way back, I stopped at a public phone booth. My hand touched the old payphone, cold, a little rough, but solid. I pulled out my personal phone, only 4% battery left. I hesitated for a moment, then powered it on. Still no messages. No missed calls. Nothing. I thought about my parents. About my sister, the one who stared straight at me and laughed when they left me at that rest stop, saying, "Let's see how you survive on your own. You're always a burden. Always whining. Now live on your own for once." That sentence kept replaying in my head. I opened my contacts, my hand shaking slightly. I couldn't tell if it was from the cold or from anger. I hit call. It rang. Once. Twice. By the 5th ring, someone picked up. "Hello?" My sister's voice, short and flat. I stayed silent for a few seconds. then said, "It's me. Your brother." Her tone shifted. "Oh, wow, you're still alive?" "Alive. And working. Earning my own money." She laughed. "Really? I figured you were just out there somewhere begging." I gripped the phone tighter. "No. I'm working at an auto shop. I have a place to sleep. I have food. And I haven't asked anyone for help." There was a pause. Then she spoke, half mocking, half defensive. "So what, you calling to come home? Or ask for money?" I took a deep breath. "I called to tell you this." "Thank you? Thank you for leaving me behind. Because for the first time in my life, I finally know who I am." Then I hung up. I didn't wait to hear what she had to say. I didn't need an apology. Or an excuse. Or pity. I just needed to say it, for myself. When I got back to the shop, it was late. The lights in the bunk room were off. I climbed into bed, still holding the phone in my hand. The screen was black, battery dead. But I felt light. That call didn't change the world. But it closed one door, and opened another. I knew I wasn't far yet. I was still just a helper at an old garage. But I had hands, feet, strength, and for the first time in years I had pride. And I swore. One day, the very people who laughed at me would be silent when I came back. I started waking up even before my alarm. While others were still groggy and crawling out of bed, I was already cleaning the garage corner, checking tools, wiping every wrench and socket clean. Miguel noticed, of course. But he didn't say anything. Just a few slight nods, quick glances from across the room, and that, to me, meant everything. In the second month, I started getting simple repair tasks, replacing spark plugs, checking brakes, reattaching exhaust systems. My hands were clumsy at first, but I learned fast. Luis, the oldest mechanic there, was always grumbling, but he showed me patiently. Once I installed a brake pad the wrong way. Luis yelled, "You trying to kill someone on the road, kid?" I just lowered my head, sweat soaking my back. But that night, he brought me a hamburger. He didn't say a word. Just left it on the table and walked off. I understood. Here, people don't say, "Thank you," or, "I believe in you." They show it through what they do. By mid-month, some customers started recognizing me. One middle-aged teacher came back after an oil change just to bring me a bag of homemade cookies. She said, "You're the only one who wipes his hands before getting into my car." A small thing, but it touched me. I never imagined that one day, these oil-stained hands of mine would earn respect. Miguel let me handle the front desk in the mornings. I rewrote the price board to make it clearer, started scheduling appointments using Excel on the garage's old computer. One day, Miguel stood behind me for a long while, then muttered, "Not as dumb as I thought." I smiled to myself. That was the biggest compliment I'd gotten from him since I first walked into this shop. My weekly pay started going up. Not by much, but enough for me to start saving. I didn't waste money. I still slept on the top bunk, still wore the same oil-stained shoes they gave me when I first arrived. But now, I had a goal. One day, I want to open my own garage. Not to compete with Miguel, but to prove to myself that I can make it, even after starting from the very bottom. On weekends, I went to the town's public library. They had free Wi-Fi, and I used the computers to study how to run an auto shop, tax laws, how to register a small business. At first, it all felt like a maze. But I stuck with it. Took notes page by page, looked up every term I didn't understand. One day, Luis asked me, "Why are you learning all that stuff? Thought you were planning to be a mechanic forever?" I just smiled. "No, I'm not stopping here." Luis smirked. "Then don't forget, when you're the boss, you still gotta know how to mop the floors like the rest of us." I nodded, feeling lighter inside. 3 months after my first day at Valdez Auto and Tire, I went to the bank. I withdrew $800 from my savings. With that money, I bought an old Honda Civic, left abandoned in the town junkyard. It wouldn't start. The tires were shredded, the windows cracked. But I didn't buy it to drive, I bought it to bring it back to life. After work, I spent every evening and weekend fixing that car. Some guys at the garage looked at me like I was nuts, working all week wasn't enough. But to me, it was proof of one thing: I wasn't waiting for anyone to save me anymore. 3 weeks later, the Civic started for the first time. The engine wasn't smooth, but it ran. I wiped my hands, looked at it parked under the streetlight, and felt something I'd never felt before. I could build something, with my own 2 hands. One night at the end of the month, while I was eating cup noodles, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A man's voice came through. "Hey, are you the guy working at Valdez Auto? Someone recommended you. I've got an old Ford F-150. Heard you're good with repairs." I was caught off guard. Yes. Who told you about me?" "The high school teacher. She said you were careful with your work." I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "I'd be happy to help. You can bring the truck by any time." After that call, I just sat there. I realized something. Things were starting to change. Not because of luck. Not because someone came to rescue me. But because I rescued myself. It took me nearly a year and a half from the day I was left behind in Colorado to make it back to my hometown in Indiana. Not because I didn't have enough money. But because I didn't want to return empty-handed, head down, like I used to be. I wanted to come back as a new man, someone who could hold his head high, proud that he didn't give up, that he rose above everything they used to laugh at. On a morning in April, I hit the road. I drove the very first car I ever fixed, that old Honda Civic, now painted a deep gray. Not flashy, but strong like me. In the trunk were boxes of donuts I made myself, gifts for Miguel and the folks at the shop. They sent me off with a simple party, pizza and old cans of beer. Miguel was his usual quiet self, but as I was about to get in the car, he slipped a business card into my hand. "When you open your shop, send me the address. Who knows, I might stop by for repairs." I smiled, holding that card like it was gold. The long drive across hundreds of miles took me through places that once felt strange, now strangely familiar. I was no longer the man left behind on the side of the road. I was the man who walked away from it, on his own 2 feet. I pulled up in front of my parents' house around noon. The house looked the same: white painted fence, faded porch roof, overgrown lawn. I stood there for a while, no anger in my chest, just a clear feeling: I didn't belong here anymore. I knocked on the door. My sister answered. Her eyes went wide like she'd seen a ghost. "Holy crap, you're really back?" I didn't say much, just smiled. "Hey sis. You look different. Skinnier. Tanned. But tougher." I didn't respond. Just then, my father came out. He looked me over, his eyes unsure. "What are you here for? Run out of places to go?" he asked, his voice as flat as ever. I took a breath. "No, I'm not here to ask to stay. I just wanted you to see, I made it. I can support myself. I didn't need anyone's help." My mom appeared behind my dad, still holding a dish towel in her hand. She didn't say anything, just looked at me in silence. Neither of them apologized. No one said a word about what happened back then. I didn't need them to. I stepped closer and pulled a sheet of paper from my pocket, a printed business registration form. "Harrison's Auto Repair, opening in Colorado this fall." I handed it to them without saying a word. My sister's eyes scanned the paper quickly, stopping at the signature. My name, clear and bold. No one said a thing. That silence, for me, was the only answer I needed. I turned and walked away. Not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to prove. The old Civic started up. I turned the car around. As I passed the first corner of the street, I saw a young boy riding his bike. He looked at me, smiled, and waved. I waved back, and suddenly I realized I had come farther than I ever thought possible. Not in distance, but in growth. I was no longer the man standing at that rest stop with nothing but a few coins in his pocket and a heart full of pain. I was a man who had gotten back up, on his own. Back in Colorado, I rented a small warehouse on the outskirts of town, the place that would become my very first auto shop. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't modern. But the first customers came because they heard about the young mechanic who really cares. And they kept coming back because of that. On the wall I hung a frame. On the left was a photo of the old Civic. On the right, my business registration form. In the middle, a quote I wrote by hand. I didn't get to choose the family I was born into, but I get to choose the man I become. From someone abandoned by family, with no home, no job, and no one who believed in him, I rose, inch by inch, with oil-stained hands and a will that refused to quit. Life didn't hand me an easy road, but it was on that rocky path that I found a better version of myself. The people who once laughed, now had nothing to say. Because I didn't need an apology, I had results. What do you think about this story? Have you ever been underestimated, yet found the strength to rise and silence the doubt? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful and moving stories about family and resilience.